Confidence is rarely born from certainty. It is most often forged in fear. In the quiet moments where someone realizes that being seen as weak feels more dangerous than being dishonest with themselves. So they learn to stand straighter, speak calmer, move as if nothing inside them is shaking. Not because they are strong, but because they are terrified of what would happen if the mask slipped. Most people never wake up one day feeling confident. They wake up feeling exposed, inadequate, replaceable, and from that discomfort they begin to build an image, a version of themselves that looks composed enough to survive the world's judgment. What you call confidence may have started as self-protection, a reflex learned early, when showing emotion led to rejection, when hesitation was punished, when uncertainty made you invisible. Over time, that reflex hardens into identity, and the world applauds it, reinforcing the behavior, never questioning what it costs you to maintain it. Inside, emotions don't disappear just because you refuse to acknowledge them. They compress, they tighten, they wait, and the more you try to control them, the more control they quietly take over you. You begin to mistake emotional numbness for stability, emotional suppression for discipline, emotional distance for maturity. But deep down, there is a constant vigilance, a silent monitoring of how you appear, how you are perceived, how much of the truth you are allowed to reveal without losing respect. This is why so many confident people feel exhausted without knowing why. Because confidence built on fear requires constant energy to sustain, constant awareness, constant performance. Every decision becomes heavier than it should be. Every mistake feels threatening. Every pause feels like exposure. Because the confidence you project is not supported by inner safety, only by habit. And the most dangerous part is not that fear exists, it is that you no longer recognize it as fear. You call it ambition, you call it high standards, you call it drive, but beneath those words is the same old anxiety asking one question over and over: what happens if I stop proving myself? This is how confidence becomes a cage disguised as strength, how emotional avoidance dresses itself up as self-control, how the refusal to feel slowly erodes the ability to choose freely. You don't realize it at first because the world rewards the image, not the internal cost. But eventually the body keeps score, the mind becomes rigid, and the life you're building starts to feel narrower instead of larger. Real strength was never about erasing fear. It was about allowing it to exist without letting it dictate who you have to pretend to be. But when confidence is born from fear, pretending becomes automatic, and the distance between who you are and who you show grows quietly, patiently, until one day you realize you've been standing confidently in front of everyone else while slowly disappearing from yourself. When emotions are hidden long enough, they don't fade. They reorganize, slipping into the background where they begin to influence your choices without ever asking for permission. And this is where confidence quietly turns into something more dangerous, a form of control you don't realize you've surrendered. What you refuse to feel doesn't vanish, it changes shape, becoming urgency where patience is needed, defensiveness where openness would be safer, restlessness where clarity is required. You tell yourself you're decisive, but beneath that decisiveness is an unacknowledged fear of hesitation. Because pausing would mean listening, and listening might uncover something you've worked too hard to bury. This is how suppressed emotion becomes a silent manipulator, steering your reactions, sharpening your tone, narrowing your options, all while you believe you're acting from logic and strength. Many of the choices you're proud of were not made from clarity, but from discomfort you were trying to escape. And because the emotion was never named, it never lost its power. Instead, it learned how to speak through behavior. It pushes you to overwork, not because you love growth, but because stillness feels unsafe. It drives you to seek recognition not because you need praise, but because validation temporarily numbs a deeper doubt. It convinces you to call pressure motivation and tension focus, so you don't have to admit how much of your energy is spent running from an internal unease you refuse to face. The illusion of control remains intact because the results often look impressive from the outside, yet internally, the cost keeps rising. Your nervous system stays alert, your mind rehearses scenarios that never happen, Your body carries a low-level tension that never fully releases. You mistake this constant activation for being driven, unaware that it is simply unresolved emotion asking to be acknowledged. The danger is not that emotions influence you. They always do. The danger is that when they are hidden, they influence you blindly. You don't choose your reactions, you justify them. You don't question your impulses, you rationalize them. And over time, the line between who you are and what you're avoiding becomes so thin that you can no longer tell whether your confidence is leading your life or quietly being used as a tool by emotions you've never allowed yourself to name. From the outside, everything about you suggests stability, confidence, someone who knows where they're going, and that image becomes so convincing that even you start to believe it. Yet inside, there is a growing sense of strain that no achievement seems to ease. This is the quiet contradiction most people never talk about, the gap between how strong you appear and how fragile you sometimes feel when no one is watching. Maintaining that image requires constant adjustment, subtle self-censorship, the careful management of tone, posture, certainty, because letting your guard down even slightly feels risky, as if the entire structure might crack. Others trust your strength because you never show doubt, but you know how much effort it takes to keep doubt out of sight, and that effort slowly turns into isolation. You can be surrounded by people and still feel unseen, because what they connect with is the version of you that never fully tells the truth. Over time, this split creates a dull, persistent pressure, a sense that you're living slightly out of alignment, saying yes when something inside says no, pushing forward when your body is asking for pause. Success doesn't feel grounding anymore. It feels hollow because it reinforces an identity that requires you to stay disconnected from your real emotional state. The more others admire your confidence, the harder it becomes to admit that you're struggling, and the role traps you, not through force, but through expectation. You begin to fear that if people saw what was really happening inside, respect would vanish, authority would weaken, and the safety you built through performance would collapse. This is how confidence, when built on suppression, turns inward and begins to erode you from the inside. You become hyper-aware of cracks, overly sensitive to criticism, quietly defensive even when nothing is being threatened, because the foundation you're standing on is not inner stability, but continuous self-monitoring. Eventually, the distance between your external image and your internal experience grows too wide to ignore, and you feel it as emptiness, as fatigue, as a strange sense of being present everywhere except within yourself. You are not broken, and you are not weak. You are simply carrying a confidence that was never designed to hold the full weight of your unacknowledged emotions. And the longer you carry it alone, the heavier it becomes. True confidence, the kind that lasts, is nothing like the performance you've been running. It doesn't need applause, it doesn't need validation, it doesn't need to hide anything, because it comes from a willingness to exist fully, with your fear, your doubt, your shame, and your joy, all at once. Real strength shows up quietly, without posturing, because it is rooted in self-awareness rather than the approval of others. It does not erase anxiety. It simply refuses to let anxiety dictate every step, every decision, every interaction. When you allow yourself to feel, to name what is uncomfortable, to acknowledge what you've been suppressing, you begin to reclaim power that was never lost, only obscured. The mask of confidence built from fear begins to dissolve, and in its place, a steadiness emerges that does not need to perform, that can rest in its own presence, that can make choices from clarity rather than compulsion. People who think confidence must always be visible fail to understand that the most resilient, most magnetic confidence is invisible. It is sensed, not announced. It is quiet because it no longer depends on proving itself. It is anchored in an internal security that cannot be shaken by judgment, rejection, or the inevitable uncertainty of life. The journey to this kind of confidence is neither quick nor easy, because it asks you to face what you have been hiding, to stop running from the very emotions you once feared would make you weak. Yet every moment spent in avoidance has already cost you more than fear ever could. To let yourself feel is to step into your true power, to allow your decisions to emerge from choice rather than compulsion, to move through the world with a gravity that draws respect without demand. And this is the paradox: surrendering the illusion of control. By embracing what you thought made you vulnerable, you become unshakable, because nothing outside can touch the part of you that has stopped hiding. And so it comes full circle. Confidence is not the absence of fear, nor is it the armor of performance you've been wearing so diligently. It is the courage to sit with what you have long denied, to face the trembling, the doubt, the longing, and to let it exist without letting it dictate who you must pretend to be. When you stop hiding behind the mask, when you stop confusing suppression with strength, you begin to reclaim the life that has been quietly slipping through your fingers. Real confidence is felt before it is seen. It is earned in the quiet confrontation with your own emotions, and it grows not from proving yourself to the world, but from proving to yourself that you can exist fully, wholly, without apology. This is the moment where fear ceases to be a master and becomes instead a companion, a signal, a guide, and only then does the image the world sees finally align with the truth you carry inside. It is here, in the surrender to what you have hidden, that freedom emerges, that power is reclaimed, that confidence is no longer a performance but a home you have returned to, where every emotion, every shadow, every fragment of yourself is allowed to breathe. And in that breathing, you find strength that no mask, no applause, and no fear can ever take away. Appreciate your time here. These moments are for observing yourself, not the market. A like or subscribe is welcome if you feel it, but don't rush. Keep this awareness with you and let it guide your mind, your emotions, and your decisions.